Tonight we welcome Victoria Reynolds, a speaker, an author of 6 books, and a beautiful, lovely soul. She is so positive and bubbly and inspiring, so I'm happy to have her on tonight. She's going to be talking about recreating the new earth, what that looks like, and also turning your pain into your purpose, how to discover your life's purpose. Please welcome Victoria Reynolds. Before we get started, if you are interested in CBD or finding a new CBD supplier, I've partnered with Hopewell Farms, and you can get 10% off this very high quality CBD. I take it every single day. It helps with meditation. It helps with my health in general, and we have 10% off with code Lily10 in the description. And I have a channel DNA activation available in the description. It's a 1-hour channel DNA activation to help you activate your DNA, your gifts, along with a workshop that will also help you to connect with your star family. So if you want to bump it up to the next level, make contact, activate your DNA, then there is a link in the description. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Starseed Chats. Tonight, I have Victoria Reynolds here with me, and somebody actually suggested Victoria. She recently spoke at a Sedona conference, I believe, where Debbie Solaris was, and she's coming on whenever this airs, she'll be there. She'll probably be on the episode after you. So, yeah, which is pretty cool. And you were recommended. So I just had to meet you and have you on. Thank you so much, Victoria. So you're an author, you do speaking events. I was doing a little bit of reading on you, and you just from talking to you for 5 minutes before we hit record, you sound like a very just interesting, very positive person. So thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, it's so nice to meet you. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do? So you have a book out, you do speaking events, just kind of a little bit about your background.
Well, it depends on how far back you want to go into my backstory.
Yeah.
I grew up, just very briefly about my backstory, because I think the backstory is very important for people to understand. Your soul's purpose always relates to whatever your backstory was. So we as a soul choose to incarnate and have this soul experience. And for those of us who have come to help be way showers for the rest of humanity, we tend to choose very painful backstories in order for us to be able to teach through them. So I was born in a fundamentalist, polygamist, very patriarchal cult in Montana. And that provided me with, as I say in my bio, all the drama and trauma necessary to be who I'm here to be. It was a very dramatic, traumatic, unsafe environment for a little girl. And however, it did provide me with the rich learning lessons through which to become who I'm here to be. And so that's a little bit about my backstory. I ran away from home when I was a teenager and went off and found my path outside of the confines of religion. And I had my first spiritual awakening at 21. And then again, what I call my midlife rebirth, my midlife holy shift in 2008 with the last economic crash. And that was my personal great awakening. So for people who are just now waking up or have had their spiritual awakening the last couple of years, this is what's called the Great Awakening. And awakening experiences tend to align with really painful experiences. It's a form of like a near-death experience. For some people, it actually is a near-death experience, but it usually involves the death of a dream, a business, a family member. In this particular case, it's the death of the collective reality, right? When we all went inside for COVID, it was the catalyst for the Great Awakening, because it was the end of that old concept of what we knew our human experience to be. And so that's a little bit of my backstory. I'm actually the author of 6 books. My most recent book, Recreating Earth, is all about this new earth that we're creating. And it came out of people asking me, what does new earth look like? So there's the conversation that I've been a part of for the past, since 2008, is that we are moving out of an old fear-based reality and into a new love-based reality. And more recently, it's been called 5D. heaven on earth, new earth. There are a bunch of different labels for the same thing, but basically it's that we're creating a new love-based, heart-based reality. And the ascension actually started in 1963. So for people think that, well, I'm waiting for the ascension. It's been going on for 70 years. So we're actually in the third wave of it. And that this now is the massive wave. This is the crux of the collective ascension of humanity.
Yeah.
A new reality that is love-based and heart-based. So recreating Earth is all about what this new Earth looks like so that people have a vision. Well, I didn't realize that some people don't have the ability to envision, and it's something I just take for granted because it's such an everyday part of my life to be able to see beyond these two physical eyes. And so it's a vision of what the future looks like for Earth when enough of us choose the ascension, betterment of humanity, golden age timeline. And all of my books are ultimately about spiritual freedom in one way or another.
Yeah.
Out of that old fear-based reality and into a new reality based in love, individually as well as collectively.
Yeah, that's amazing. There's so much to unpack right there. So first off, I want to say I totally agree. I get a lot of people reaching out that they're going through very hard, difficult things right now. And at the very beginning of their big awakening. And for me, just a little bit of background on me, my awakening started, I had quit my dream job that I went to school for. I was a nutritionist because the boss turned into a narcissist and it just went crazy. So I dropped that. My whole world crumbled. Somebody wrecked my car. Like so many things were happening all at once. And then I was basically like, I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't know what I'm doing. UFOs started showing up. So then that started happening. And then I began communicating with these beings. I literally went through a massive rebirth. But right before that, I was at a big rock bottom. And whenever people are going through a difficult time, I've noticed that is a catalyst for your awakening. Turning your pain. I really liked what you said, what you had, and I've heard this before, but turning your pain into your purpose. Could you speak on that a little bit?
Well, it isn't even necessarily about turning your pain into your purpose. On a soul level, we actually chose to experience that because it is the ground from which our purpose springs. So I often talk about how we have a life purpose and then we have a higher purpose if we're willing to accept it. So the life purpose can be, working at a great job, being a mom, whatever your life purpose is. And for a lot of people, it's their career. And then there's this higher purpose that is on a soul contract level, that we have made a contract with our higher self, that at some point we will choose to take this higher path. That higher purpose is related to whatever that pain is that we experienced when we were younger, or that we on a soul level chose to experience so that we could be of this higher purpose. So it really is intentionally looking into that pain experience and asking with genuine curiosity, why did I experience that? So what some people is go, oh, why did this happen to me? The difference is to look at it and go, oh, why did this happen to me? And on a soul level, you'll start to discover that, I see. From a spiritual perspective, you start to unpack all the reasons these things started to occur so that we could be who it is we're really here to be. Right. And it's interesting that you call it rebirth, because that's what I called what happened to me in 2008 when I wrote my first book, Transcending Fear. And actually, I'm in the process of publishing a second edition of that. I called it my midlife rebirth. And that's what it feels like, right? Like I've been born again. And I think it's really important for people to understand that's what Yeshua meant when he said you need to be born again in spirit. It had nothing to do with religion. It's all about having a personal spiritual rebirth. and find that divinity and that connection to spirit within ourselves. And it's different for every person.
Right. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. So in your books, you talk a lot about transcending fear. And I know that's just a huge part through my journey. I've had to work through a lot of limiting beliefs and really like looking at yourself. What's keeping you from, achieving or doing whatever you want to do? And then you discover there's a bunch of limiting beliefs you didn't even know that you had. So you have to work through those and like rewrite those. And then on the other side, through my spiritual awakening and my rebirth, opening up to the spiritual world, I had a lot of fears that came up also. So I guess that's kind of going in two different directions. But could you speak on that?
Well, it's actually not two different directions.
Ah.
It might look that way. We have been living in a fear-based reality. Now, I used to call it the present fear-based reality, but I got very clear guidance about a year ago to start calling it the old fear-based reality, because it is no longer our present reality. It's certainly not my present reality. And a lot of people are starting to step out of that old reality that's based in fear and move toward this new reality that's based in love. We're actually in this in-between time right now. That's why it feels so weird and like surreal, because we're in between these two different realities. So the old fear-based reality is falling apart. This new love-based reality is being created. And we're actually ones that are causing the implosion of the old reality and creating the new one. That's every single one of us play a vital role in this transition process. So in this old fear-based reality, the default was fear. All of our actions, choices are all fear-based, unconscious fear-based choices. And all of these unconscious beliefs, as you were saying, you're starting to unpack all these limiting beliefs. They're all fear-based. And fear actually is an illusion. It actually isn't real. Fear is an illusion. It's a projection on a reality that doesn't exist. And so we have all of these fear-based beliefs that is the core makeup of this old reality we've been living in. So this transcending fear is all about unpacking all of those beliefs, and limiting beliefs are part of that.
Huge.
And right, and fear of the future is a part of it, and all the stuff we experienced as children that caused us to have fear about moving forward, it's all fear-based.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, so what would you suggest to people who, because a lot of these things, they can be very hidden. Like you don't even know where it's coming from, these limiting beliefs and this fear. So do you have any tips or guidance for the audience to where maybe they could start kind of digging into that and discovering that for themselves? You mentioned childhood trauma. That was a huge one for me.
Well, it almost always is. Yeah, because our experience as an adult of reality comes from our childhood experiences. And that's really important that we don't go into blame, because the first place people go is blame and victimization. Well, the reason my life sucks is because of my parents. The reason my life sucks is because of my culture. The reason my life sucks is because of blah, blah, blah. Blame and victimization. And blame and victimization keep us disempowered. So as soon as anybody starts feeling themselves going into blame and victimhood, understand that that is a form of disempowerment. That's why the media is constantly spreading disempowerment. So that we don't find our own true divine power within ourselves. So the best way, here's an example. And this is someone I met about 10 years ago. I was in 7-Eleven, for people who are wondering how to do this. And it was the beginning of the year, and this guy bought a package of cigarettes, and he looked at me, just random guy, and he said, you know what, I know, he said, I'm really trying to quit, and I know I shouldn't buy these, and I really want to quit. And I said, well, what's the underlying fear? And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, if you want to change your life and you're not, it's because there's a fear that's underneath that. And he said, you know what, yeah, and he said, yeah, I know that. And I said, and then what's the fear underneath that? And what's the fear underneath that? And what's the fear underneath that? So that's what it comes down to, is first recognizing the big fear. What's the big fear? And then start to unpack it. And I think it's really important for people to understand and not try to unpack it all at once, because we got to process each of these at a new level, and then you can process it at another level, and then process it at another level. Nobody gets no. I'm going to go back to what I keep telling people. Nobody makes the leap from 3D to 5D. It's like trying to jump over the Grand Canyon. There's a process, a bridge that we all need to cross between that hell within ourselves and the heaven consciousness we all seek to create within ourselves. And it's a willingness to process our lives. It's a willingness to open up all of our baggage and go, oh yeah, I forgot about that one. And take out all of our stuff and lay it out on the buffet table. We've got to work with. There is no instant quick fix, but there is, in a sense, because love can cure anything. Divine love cures all things. Fear is a dis-ease on the hearts and minds of humanity, and the only thing that cures it is love.
And the term darkness is only the absence of light. Yeah, that's amazing. Speaking about love, so when these UFOs started showing up to me, and I knew nothing at this time, I realized, okay, I think these UFOs are communicating to me. And then a communication began. And then eventually I realized, oh my God, they're my star family. And whenever I would sense them around, or whenever they would come around, I would just feel this overwhelming love. And I can't tell you how many times I bawled my eyes out just from sensing them. And they helped me to unpack my traumas and unpack with their love. Just their love was so healing. And they showed me how to love myself. It's just incredible.
Yeah, human beings haven't really experienced, for the most part, human beings haven't really experienced that kind of love. And it is because human beings have love attached to emotion. And part of this is because the reality we've been living in, that love is an expression between two people, chocolate and roses and hugs and things like that. But the love is actually an energetic experience. And that's what you experienced, was love beyond words. And that love is the love all things are made of. And when you feel it, you go, oh my gosh, this is amazing. You don't actually get it from anyone else. It is the stuff that we're actually made of, and it's activated inside of us and then expands out through us. And when we understand that love is all that is, and we are all that, we're all made of it, these beings for our star family have already learned that. That love really is all it is, and fear is just an illusion that's been projected onto love. And it's so amazing that your family, your star family, was able to teach you that.
Yeah.
And that you got to experience that. Are you Palladian?
Partly, yes. I see them a lot. The first ones who came through were Lyran, and then the Pleiadians started coming through. So I see both of them a lot. Lyran, as they had light blue skin and no hair.
Interesting. Yeah, I know the Arcturians are blue.
I love the Arcturians. I see them a lot too. I work with them a lot, but I'm not myself Arcturian, but they're very close. The first beings, so they told me that they were Lyran. I eventually found out they were also they migrated to the Andromeda constellation, so Andromeda Council, as well as Pleiadians. Yeah.
Well, the Lyrans are one of the most ancient civilizations in the universe.
Mhm.
And so there actually are a lot of Lyrans here on Earth. So it was migrated to Earth about 40 million years ago.
Yeah.
So a lot of the Earthlings are actually Lyran.
Mhm.
But as the Lyrans were traveling through the cosmos, because their system exploded, now we're going to the details, but they ended up with, Andromedans and the Arcturians and the Palladians and that's
Syrian.
in the Syrians, all of them. So they're all star family.
Mhm.
There's no racism when they all enter, right? It's so funny that
Yeah.
we go, oh, well, I'm better. It's like, actually, no, all of us are all of that. The star family seeded Earth.
Mhm.
So we actually are all family.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and so I do star origins readings too, and just to kind of see, it helps people to get an idea of where they came from, like, who they were before this, and that everybody has multiple star families.
Right. And that's the thing, because those of us who are very old souls, you can't really pinpoint one particular system, because some of us have lived a lot of different places. I've done past star regressions. I'm like, oh yeah, that planet and that planet and that planet. I'm not from anywhere unless you go back to my original. So I'm an Elohim. I'm one of the oldest souls in the universe. Uh, and my first physical incarnation was Lyran.
Mm.
But I've been around so long, I've actually helped to create worlds. I'm actually a creator of worlds. That's why I'm here on the planet now, is to recreate this one.
That's amazing. Yeah, I can see, just got a vision of you kind of like architecting the new earth. That's amazing. And
Yeah.
we all have our different unique backgrounds, our different unique gifts that are being activated. DNA is another big topic. That's what the UFOs and then the star family were teaching me a lot, was about DNA and activating your gifts. So each one of us has our own unique energy, our own unique background, our own unique gifts, and we're here creating the new earth together. And it's beautiful.
Absolutely. Yeah, and every single one of us is vital to it. So
Yeah.
it's interesting when I see, people in our community kind of infighting a little bit. I always remind people that all of us, it doesn't matter who we are. I may be one of the creators of worlds, but my role here isn't any more important than anyone else's. It's just the role that I have, that I was created to play.
Mhm.
And so I'm Victoria Elohim of Freedom. I, I embodied, finished embodying in 2018 in what's called a soul merge with my personality self. That's also referred to as a walk-in.
Mm.
And I work with the Elohim, and I work with what I call the my personal council in this council chambers, which is on a floating city called the New Jerusalem, which I didn't even know before. I kept asking, what is this room that I'm meeting people in? I finally figured out what this room is that I'm meeting these other beings in. And so I incarnate on this planet when humanity has a need for freedom. So, for example, my last incarnation I was a Jewish sympathizer. I actually helped to rescue the Jewish people during the Nazi invasion. A lifetime before that, I helped to rescue Blacks from the South in the United States, helped with ending that particular round of slavery here in America. And so I'm called here now because we are liberating the entire planet from this old fear-based reality. And that's why we're all here. My understanding is now there are hundreds of millions of us, star beings, angelics, the volunteers from all over the universe who volunteered to come here right now at this time to ensure this liberation of humanity proceeds forward. It's what people call the ascension. It's also the spiritual liberation of humanity from the old constructs of fear. And so, yeah, so a lot of people are starting to remember who they are, and we come in with superpowers that are the superpowers already exist within our DNA.
Mhm.
It's simply a matter of them being activated.
Mhm.
And so over the past 10 plus years, more than that, I actually started about 70 years ago when the starseeds started coming in and bringing their superpowers with them. They don't look like superpowers in the beginning, but
Mhm.
it's the telepathic capabilities, it's the Reiki healing, that's their actual spiritual superpowers. And people expect it to be, well, I'm going to fly and get my cape and fly away. It's not quite like that. But we all have our superpowers. They're spiritual powers. And that's why a lot of people don't recognize them.
Mhm.
That's how powerful love is. That when love activates that dormant, what science calls junk DNA. Now we know it's not junk DNA. It's just our spiritual DNA that hasn't been activated yet.
Mhm.
That love and light are what activate those superpowers within us.
Mhm.
And people all over the world are having their superpowers activated. And at some point, enough people will have fully embodied their superhuman capabilities that all of these systems of fear and control actually will no longer exist
Mhm.
because we will have outgrown them.
Right. Yeah, incredible. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things, helping people to activate their DNA and activate their gifts. I wasn't clairvoyant 2 years ago. I didn't receive visions 2 years ago. I definitely wasn't doing Reiki healing or any of that 2 years ago. I kind of got the crash course the past 2 years with the star beings. But so that love, I really liked how you said, because I remember thinking that whenever I first felt the love from Star Family, and then they introduced me to uh, Source, essentially, the angels, Jesus, Yeshua. I didn't, I didn't mess with any of that before.
My,
Uh, Introducing me to that and giving me a taste of that, I was like, oh my God, this feeling is, there's nothing else like it. I've never felt anything like this before. It's crazy. Incredibly healing. Incredibly healing. And you almost feel like, I don't know, I guess that's part of why it just made me cry so much in the beginning, is because I'm like, you're not, Earth can be very difficult. People can be very mean. You get your heart broken a lot. So it's just such a pure, just incredible feeling. Um, yeah, and anybody can connect with, the divine, with and it's, it's all within us. They're showing me a vision. It's like we're wearing kind of like these suits right now. We're unzipping the suits and stepping out for our true light to shine through. So yeah, I just wanted to comment on that. I thought that was nice.
yeah. Some people call it a meat suit. I don't. That feels very. Yeah, I don't like that term.
Yeah.
It's a very un. It feels like a very unloving way of speaking about this human avatar.
Yeah. I mean, our bodies are great too.
Well, this is a sacred temple
Yeah.
that houses our soul, that houses our light body. We chose these extraordinary avatars to express our love and our light through. Why would we call them anything less than perfection?
Yeah. I like that.
Sometimes I look in the mirror and go, man, I chose a good one this time. Not that it's got some issues, but this is a sacred avatar I chose to experience life through.
Yeah.
Why would I call it anything less than divine?
Mm-hmm.
This is love experiencing and expressing itself in physical form.
Right. Yeah, I feel like that was another thing that I really had to work through starting this rebirth, was like shame for who you are.
Absolutely.
shame for your body, what you look like I'm too short or this, like all of those things
Hmm.
that we feel you
All
really.
those, yep, all those fear-based projections that are placed on us. So when we're born, I mean, there are a few beings who are born with um, issues, obviously, but the vast majority of humanity is born as a literally a ball of love. When we think about, a lot of people think about soul as having a human form. Spirit is really uh what's the word I'm looking for? Balls of light, right? We see them when people talk about seeing forms. It's like these balls of light, right? And so we are light choosing to experience itself in human form. And so we come in as pure love, pure light, experiencing itself as human. As we drop into this human experience, we start to learn fear. And so all those beliefs that we have are these fear-based projections that get placed into our fields. And some of them come from other people and other teachings that have been taught to us by our parents, our religions, our schools, our media. Just being human, we get bombarded with all of these beliefs about not being enough.
Right.
And we lose the truth that we are divine love having a human experience. And that as divine beings, everything is possible through us. And so we have to work down through all those shame, blame, againstness, guilt, all that crap. It's BS belief systems that are fed to us to make us feel less than divine. And every single one of us is worthy of all the gifts in the universe. We are created in perfection. And we, throughout life, in a sense, we dismember our divinity. And then at one point, we remember who we are. And we start to bring all of those aspects back in our wholeness, our holiness, and remember who we really are. And that's the process I'm talking about. In order to get to heaven on earth within ourselves, we have to be willing to deep dive into all of that stuff. And it's not pleasant. As a friend of mine says, the best gems are in the shit. So we gotta dive into the ugliest parts of our lives and extract the juice from them. And then what happens at some point is all of those stories, instead of being the baggage that we drag around behind us, actually becomes the wings that support our soul's highest purpose once we transmute them from fear into love. And you can go through life actually experiencing that infinite love that our star family is trying to teach us. That's what we have access to, and that we are before we descend into human form. And on a soul level, we all know we're coming into this human experience, and this is not an easy place to live. Earth is like graduate school for the soul. It is a down and dirty, deep soul learning experience. And if we can learn to master the human experience, as some have, then we can master anything in the universe.
Wow.
So, but this is where souls come to learn to experience mastery, soul mastery.
I love that. Yeah, they often, talking with the star beings, they're like applauding us, like we're doing tough work here.
Well, what happens on Earth affects the entire universe.
Right.
So, I know the first time I heard that, when that message came in about 10 years ago, I thought, well, that's really strange, because I didn't realize how I had this limiting concept, like, especially growing up in this extremely patriarchal religious environment. I thought, like a lot of other people, that the entire universe was created to support Earth. It's one little infinitesimal speck, and we are the end all be all of God's creation. I remember one point thinking, well, if humans as good as it gets, God's got a lot of work to do, because human beings are pretty fallible, right? And so I think it's really important for people to understand that human beings are actually a very young species. This is actually a very young species, and the great human experience, as I call it, is actually a fairly new game. If you think about it as a video game, this particular experience is only about 11,000 years. Actually, it's about 25,000 years old. But the fear coming into this particular experience is about 11,000 years ago, when the collective of souls agreed to learn through that dark fear-based contrast, because contrast makes for such a great medium for growth.
Wow. Yeah. So with the fear you mentioned, so behind all of the darkness, what in the things that we're experiencing, kind of what are your thoughts on that? So you just mentioned that about 12,000 years ago, we agreed for this to come in so that we can experience contrast.
Right.
Could you speak any more of that? And I know, like, Atlantis. So whenever I do my star origins readings, most of the time people have lived in Atlantis or Lemuria, and it seems like we incarnated there, and then like we're stuck around. We're doing it again this time. This is like round.
So if you think about cycles, 25,000 year cycles. So these are civilizations. Are you there?
I'm here.
That's weird. My computer just timed out or some strange thing. My screen went black. Speaking of the darkness, my screen went black. So there have been many civilizations that have come and gone from this planet. And just because it's not written in the history books doesn't mean they didn't exist. This particular experience is about 25,000 years old. But before that have been this planet's been seeded many times. Cultures that have come and gone many times. As I was saying, as long as my understanding is up to 40 million years ago, how many different cultures have come and gone. This is one of the most beautiful and sought after planets in the entire universe. And that's why there are always beings fighting over it, right? There have been, I don't know how many battles fought over the battle for Terra, right? Because this is such an extraordinary planet. And what we're doing right now is restoring this planet to her original divine blueprint, restoring humanity to its original divine human blueprint. So yes, there are many of us older souls who have experienced many lifetimes on this planet, and many lifetimes in the human culture, as well as previous humanoid cultures such as Atlantis and Lemuria, and experiencing lifetimes on other planets, which I know is a crazy stretch for people. I remember the first time I started saying, on planet Earth, and I had one who was like, it freaks me out when you call Earth planet Earth. I'm like, well, because I've lived on so many other planets, that's just my name for this one. And so we agreed to experience the contrast, which is why I don't get into the whole blame, conspiracy, all that kind of stuff, because on a soul level, we agreed to experience that. And the thing that's really difficult to understand until once you start to grasp it is that the darkness exists to serve the light. We would not remember our light if we didn't experience the darkness. We wouldn't remember the depths of love if we hadn't also experienced fear. Without the contrast, we don't get a full experience of what's possible as divine love experiencing itself. And a really good way to explain it to people is, if you think about, now we're moving in the reality we're moving into, this is no longer necessary because we as a collective of souls have now chosen for this to be a planet of peace. And so we're actually moving out of the contrast. We're now going to be learning through joy rather than through suffering. And But if you think about a plant, for example, you stick a plant in the ground, in the darkness, and that is actually where the growth begins, is within that darkness itself. That's where we learn to root and ground and start to sprout. And then we emerge up into light. The darkness serves the purpose for soul growth until we no longer need it. This is how we learn to love the darkness and to love the fear, not love it emotionally, but to understand. That's what Yeshua meant when he said to love your enemies. It isn't about emotional love. It's that love that you and I were talking about, understanding that we are the source of love. And then when we imbue love into the darkness, the light into the darkness, right? You turn on a light switch. When you turn on the light, the darkness does no longer exist. When enough of us remember that we are the source of light, darkness can no longer exist in our presence. When enough of us remember that we are love sourced through us, then fear can no longer exist in our presence. On a soul level, the fear and darkness are great mediums for growth.
Yeah.
And that's how we learn to project love into it until it no longer serves a purpose in our lives.
Definitely. Well, beautifully said. Beautifully said. So for working on maybe techniques, what types of techniques have you used to work through these things or practice? I know meditation is big, sound healing. What have been kind of your personal exercises, journaling, maybe just a few examples that have helped you begin to remember your light and release your baggage?
For me, it's journaling. I don't have the time or the patience for meditation. It's like, seriously, I'm a full-time mom and I'm running a business and a house and all stuff. Who has time to sit and meditate? So I do what I call a walking meditation. Or I meditate when I'm doing dishes. I meditate when I'm gardening. I meditate when I'm walking. It's and I'm constantly channeling information from source. It's all wide awake. It's daydreaming, day visioning. You don't have to step out of being human in order to also have a spiritual experience. This is actually one of the things that came to me a few years ago. Remember when the first time I experienced that love and that's actually that love that you feel is actually the compassion of Mother Creator. So people are so busy worshiping Father Creator, they forget that Mother Creator even exists. Her love is actually the love that we feel, that is beyond words. That actually is the rapture. Okay, you have experienced that rapture. It's a love that's beyond words. To be enraptured in this love and compassion of Mother Creator. And I remember the first time I experienced that, and I had said, to my team, I said, I want to live in this all day, every day. And the response was, well, you live on Earth. You live on planet Earth. If you're up there in La La Land all the time, you're not really having a human experience, because that's the best high you can ever even imagine. Like, oh, wow, can I just be that? That's heaven. And so what I was being shown is that what we are doing is that we are now learning how we no longer have to die to get to heaven. We're actually bringing heaven into our human experience. So understanding that heaven on earth is actually created by us and through us. And sorry, I forgot what your question was.
No, I loved it. I was asking, you pretty much answered it. Techniques that you use to help you do that.
Yeah. So for me, my big thing is writing. I don't know how many notebooks I have. I started writing in 2008. I got the insight to get a notebook, and I have an entire bookcase full of notebooks, messages from my higher self, messages from my team. So my book, Transcending Fear, was the book that I wrote. It was based on the process my higher self gave me for healing my life. In that book, I called on my inner therapist. I didn't know there was such a thing as higher self. So it was my inner therapist teaching me how to remedy my life. And then later I realized, oh, it's my higher self talking to me. Got it. So that that writing is, for me, that's been the most important tool, and it's what I recommend for people to sit down in the morning for me, because that's the only time I had any quiet time, and really listen to the divine speaking through us. And it will teach us how to remedy our lives. It will teach us how to connect back with ourselves. For some people, it's meditation. Like I said, for me, I do a walking meditation because I'm multitasking.
Right.
So I'll go out and I'll stick my feet in the beach. Or I'll go outside and pull some weeds in my garden, and it just helps me reground and connect back in, and get out of my mind and back into my heart.
Okay. See, there's one of the keys, getting out of your mind and into your heart. I was just going to ask. So, I pretty much get messages and have spiritual experiences like all the time. I get nudges and thoughts and feelings and guidance. But for some people, and that's part of what I do on my channel, is teaching people how to connect with not only their star family, but also to their higher selves, you could say. So I was going to ask, because some people, they're like, well, how do I talk to my higher self? Or how do I know if what I am receiving is, the divine? I guess they kind of question themselves. So I was going to ask, like, how did that start for you? Did a thought just pop in your head, or was it like a feeling? And then how do you kind of nurture that to have that relationship with your higher self and that connection?
Well, it's really interesting. Okay, one, everyone is always communicating with their higher self, whether they know it or not. Right? It's just it's so funny because people pray and ask for answers. They just don't know how to listen. And so for me, consciously, it began on, I can tell you exactly when, November 11th, 2010. And it was in my bathtub. And I heard this voice that said, I am you in the fourth dimension, and our worlds are about to collide. Very, very clear words. And I remember, well, I had earlier that day, I'd done an activation with a woman who activated a bridge between my personality self and my higher self. And I was the first activation she'd ever done. She said, I don't know if it worked. And then that night I started hearing myself in the bathtub. I was like, who is this in my head? It's me. So it was an active communication between myself and my higher self. And that's when I started writing down in my notebooks, and my higher self was teaching me how to remedy my life. And like I said, eventually that became a book, because at one point I realized, it was like, oh, I should take all these notes and stick them on the computer. And it actually became like putting pieces of a puzzle together. And it formed itself into a book. But initially it was just my own healing process. So for me, it became active when I would sit with my notebook every day and write down the messages that I heard coming through. And one day I said, how can I tell the difference between imagination and inspiration? And the answer was, they are the same thing.
Wow. Wow. I like that.
And what I started realizing after that is I've always had the ability to communicate with myself. I just thought it was my imagination. I didn't really think of like channeled messages or anything, but I go all the way back through my childhood, and I questioned what I was being taught in my religion. And I would sit and think and ponder on things the way that I assumed everybody else pondered on things. When I lost my business in 2008, remember, this was before my spiritual awakening, I had this whole vision about being told, having this imagination of imagining going out and paddling out and waiting for the next wave. And I had no idea. Inspiration, imagination are the same thing. So we're experiencing it all the time. The way to tell a difference, whether it's inspiration or infiltration, is the key. Inspiration is always, 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 always loving. Always. Infiltration is not. That's where you get blame, resentment, judgment, all those fear-based things that get in there and they mess with the ego and stir the pot. That's infiltration.
Mhm.
So you can tell a difference because the truth is always loving. Always.
I like that. Very, very, very true. I like that. Yeah, discernment has been a huge one recently.
Mhm. Yeah,
Discernment.
and I do a lot of work to protect my field. I make it very clear that only love is allowed to enter my mind.
Mhm.
A shield of protection around me because I can see what's happening out there. It's like stepping back and watching what's going on in the world like it's a movie and staying neutral about it. It's
Mhm.
what's called being a conscious neutral observer, staying neutral about what's going on and allowing only love and truth be allowed to be what I see and hear and experience life through. We have to set those parameters because we do live in a world where both contrasts exist.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Putting up the protective bubble. Um, I've also been this past week saging a lot and just releasing, releasing the bad baggage and then transmuting it. So yeah, great tips. Great tips.
Oh, and with the word release, just to share,
Mhm.
the word release actually means to lease again. So a lot of people don't understand why they keep having the same experience over and over again when they think they've released it. So, so what I do is I release it back to the universe.
Mhm.
I transmute it and then release it back to the universe to do with, or God or spirit or whatever, the angels, whatever your term is. But that way it's leased back to the universe. I've borrowed that experience. Thank you very much. And I'm giving it back now that I'm finished with it. So a lot of people release it and then it's leased again in their human experience. So this is just another way of being able to say, I'm finished with this learning experience. Thank you for the learning experience. And I'm giving it back to God, giving it back to the divine, back to the universe as loving energy. Yeah.
I like it. I like it. And another big thing that I've been working on recently is observing. So you were mentioning, being the observer, the neutral observer, super important. Even with going back into, I've been doing some digging in traumatic memories, and with the guidance of some of the Pleiadians the other day. Uh, they were guiding me through the process because I was kind of like remote viewing these things
Mhm.
from the past. And they were guiding me, just observe it. Don't attach to it. Just observe it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, but like I kind of knew that before, but just kind of like really, really learning it and practicing it has been very helpful. Very
Yeah.
helpful.
Detachment is definitely a higher learning how to detach from our experiences. It's different. I think it's important for people to understand there's a difference between being connected to the other people in our lives and being detached from the experience. So there's a point when you've done a lot of work or an experience where you can just look at it and go, oh, I see the role that this played here, and I see the role that the people played in it, and be able to be completely emotionally detached from the experience and just see it again, like I was calling it. You just start to see it as your backstory.
Mhm.
There's no longer any emotional attachments to it. In order to get to that place of emotional detachment, though, we need to be willing to bring it up and look at it, and that part can be painful.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I wanted to ask, so have you done a lot of like past life healing also, or have you focused more on the present? Past life has been something that has come up for me a lot, and I see it in the readings, specifically like Atlantis or the destruction of Lyra. So I was
Mm.
just curious your experience on that. Have you had to kind of look at those things too?
Oh, for sure. So, um, one of the things that's really amazing about this particular time and space, if you think about time as being a field rather than a line, this particular time in the human experience, we have the ability and the gift of being able to transmute all previous, not transmute's not quite the right word, to do the spiritual work, the issue resolution, the karmic resolution of all lifetimes, all frequencies, all universes, all dimensions in this one now time and space. Mm. And so for me, the self-forgiveness is the biggest tool I've found for being able to do this work. There has been some self-forgiveness. So I had to do some self-forgiveness around my last lifetime, where, as I said, I was a Jewish sympathizer. So for me, I had sent my husband and my kids away. And I still carried that because I sent them away and then I was murdered. You know, we've all been murdered. I don't know how many times. It's part of being a way shower is that, you know. And one of the spiritual volunteers, we tend to get murdered for the work that we do. Not this time, though. All I was told this time, we're good. And so, yeah, I had to do some self-forgiveness around that, and the guilt that I had carried with my personality self had carried forward about not being there for my husband and my kids. And another lifetime, I had to do some self-forgiveness work around a particular witch hunt that took place because of a mistake that I made, and over 300 people were murdered because of a choice that I made, and I had to do some self-forgiveness work around that. I actually had my throat slit. I remember that death experience. So I have had to do some lifetimes where I made some choices, human choices, that led to painful experiences for other people. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't necessarily about my own experience. It was a forgiveness of causing pain and suffering in other people's lives that needed to have that karmic resolution done. I haven't had to do that in going too far back. This is only going a few lifetimes back.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah. So my feeling is I came in pretty clear. I think because I am such an old soul, I probably did that karmic resolution a long time ago for a lot of other things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, people have asked me, like, it seems like now we're clearing, but what you just said makes sense. We're at a unique spot where we can resolve this karma from all of these other, incarnations.
Right. So we don't have to carry it forward.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's like the law of karma. Once we move out of learning through the contrast and we move into this learning through love and joy and this purely humanitarian heart, which is the love for all life on earth and the love for earth herself, in order to create that heaven on earth, we need to be willing to do all the karmic detachments that come with it and all the karmic work that goes with it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that we're free. I mean, ultimately, that's what spiritual freedom is. That the spirit is then set free from all attachments to the karmic cycles.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Incredible. Let me check and see. Okay, so I saw that you recently did a video with Saint Germain on the banking and financial system remodel. Could you touch on, I didn't watch the video though. Could you touch on that?
Oh, yeah. So he's one of my go-tos. He's in the council chambers. Yeshua's here. And Saint Germain, anyway, I actually know where they all sit, and that's a big round table. And so when I want to know what's happening on the financial prosperity plane on earth, he's my go-to, because he is he's the protector of Earth's prosperity programs. So each one of the guardians have, we're all the guardians of light, but each of them also have a specific role. And, so Yeshua is the master teacher for planet Earth. Saint Germain's the overseer of the prosperity systems, prosperity programs. I've gotten very clear guidance from my team to no longer refer to these as systems, because systems are part of the old fear-based reality where the human experience was systemized as a way of controlling the human experience. So we're going to be creating services rather than systems. So these new prosperity services, these prosperity programs, what he was showing me is that when we've known for a while that the banking systems, because the banking systems are all based in greed and control, are going to start collapsing. and that it's important to take our prosperity and put it elsewhere. So what's been happening in the meantime, as the banking systems are starting to collapse, is that new modalities for being able to exchange our prosperity are being created at the same time. So as I was saying in the beginning, the old world is crumbling at the same time we're building the new one. They actually coexist for a while. And so new programs are being created for us to manage our prosperity. And that, and I'm still looking for how those work. It is, however, investing our prosperity in asset back, but that's not even quite the right word. It's investing in the goodness of the earth herself. So prosperity as a whole actually does come from Mother Earth. Money is a physical expression of the prosperity of Earth herself. Money doesn't come from pennies from heaven. It's fun to imagine money falling from the sky. It actually comes from Earth, and it's rooted up through us. And so if we can put our trust not in the banking systems that were created as systems of greed and control, and put our trust in the earth herself, which is gold and silver and things like that, that actually are investing in the planet and her goodness. And there are some new, and so that's what this was all about, was to say, pull your money out of the stock market, because it's fake money. The stock market exists for the entire purpose of the stock market is it's a game of monopoly to make the rich richer and to take money from the poor. So it's pull your money out of the stock market and pull your money out of the banking system and looking for alternatives. So I've been looking for alternatives to be able to, so for example, I pulled my IRA out of the bank and put it in gold and silver. And now there are some apps that allow you to be able to exchange the energy of gold and silver itself rather than going through the banking system. So that's basically what that show was all about, was that reinvesting back in each other and reinvesting back into the earth herself, rather than these false constructs that were created for control.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, they showed, they gave me some messages from the future a little bit ago. And that was one of the things they showed me. Well, they showed me gold, and they said something very important is happening this year that has to do with gold. At first, I thought maybe scientifically, because gold's very high frequency.
Human beings have no idea what the power of gold really is.
Right.
Yeah, it's actually a necessary part of ascension. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Yes. So that, and then also thinking the financial system, gold backed. And then one of the other things that they told me was that something in 2023, I believe they said by Christmas time, something will happen on the planet that increases poverty and increases abundance, decreases poverty.
Right.
So I was like, well, that sounds good.
Looking up. What Yeshua explained to me back in 2012 is it's the turning of the tables. So he was showing me how he went into the temple, he turned the tables. That's what's happening, is that the financial tables are being turned right side up. So if you think now, the way the patriarchal pyramid is, I call it that because we have been living in a patriarchal, male dominated. This isn't about men versus women. I think it's really important to understand that this has been a masculine dominated reality we've been living in for quite a long time. And what's been happening with the ascension is the rebalancing of masculine and feminine. So the pyramid's going to be flipped right side up. So here's a great visual when you talk about the fear and darkness, that these systems of control are actually based on the fear and darkness. So if you think about them being underground, right? And then money tree, prosperity, actually you have a program called the 60 money trees. I talk about prosperity a lot, that as we outgrow this learning through the darkness, it looks more like a vessel. And trees grow up and out and blossom, and they're fruitful and multiplying. And so that's what's going to happen. We are going to start growing now up and out, and experiencing, the masses of humanity will start to experience prosperity, because everything in the entire universe is coded to prosper. We're not coded for lack. We're coded for prosperity. Lack is part of the fear-based illusion.
Right.
And so the masses of humanity will begin to prosper. So if you think about a tree, there's a reason we use money trees, because they are such a great visual that and then there's only a few people, a few at the bottom who have a little bit. The masses have a lot. It's like there's going to be a complete inversion of the way it's presently done. And what I was shown a few years ago is the people who are controlling the prosperity will actually, there's going to be a complete rebalancing of the playing field. And a lot of them will actually have their money taken from them. It'll be distributed back to the people it was stolen from. So the few who have the most, that money is going to be turned, and those few will then have the least.
Mm-hmm. Karma.
Like we said, this is the lifetime when we all do our karma work. So they're going to end up paying their karmic debts to humanity. Yes.
Wow.
It isn't going to happen overnight. I think people really need to understand this is not an overnight thing. If the entire planet was suddenly flooded with, and this is the number I was given, and it's going to freak you out because it's such a big number, it's beyond comprehension, decadillions. Mm. And millions, billions, trillions, quadrillions, septillions, decadillions.
I didn't even know that existed.
I didn't either. Octillions, not like decadillions. So that's like 10 times, right? Okay. And so it's so much money that eventually there will be so much money that money will no longer, like, we won't even need it. It will just be a bygone concept because it won't have any value at all. If it were to flood the entire planet all at once, it would completely destroy all of our social constructs, because you wouldn't be able to buy anything, you wouldn't be able to get anything, no one would want to go to work, and it would completely stall out the entire human experience.
Right.
So it is going to, the turning of the tables isn't an instant thing. It is the beginning of money being fed into the recreating of Earth so that we can begin constructing a new experience for humanity. Mm-hmm. And as the money starts flooding into these projects and these services to build a new framework for the new human experience, then everyone thrives as a result of it. Mm-hmm. I mean, eventually we'll have what are they called? I think it's a Star Trek thing where you just say, computer, create something meal, and it just generates it because everything is energy. Oh, yeah. The idea that we actually need to eat another sentient being is absurd. Mm-hmm. And so, generators, right? We'll all have these little generators. Everything will just be instant manifestation. But that's not something that's going to happen in 6 months.
Right.
However, the dams to the flow of prosperity are going to start being, like the floodgates are going to start opening up, and money will start pouring into projects that will then change the entire human experience. Mm-hmm. And be given first to those who have the capacity to know what to do with it. Mm-hmm. So right now, if money were to flood the entire human experience, it'd end up right back in the same hands because the consciousness hasn't shifted to be able to know what to do with it. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. Very, very, very exciting. And it's beginning. Like it's already begun. But yeah, I like how you mentioned throughout this whole thing, it is a process. It is a process. All of it is a process. Activating your DNA is a process. Some people can suddenly they wake up or in an instant they have new gifts and abilities. That can happen, but also that it's, this whole thing.
It does happen. So that happens a lot with walk-in experiences. But what a lot of people don't understand is that even as a walk-in, there is still some personality resolution that needs to be done. Mm-hmm. So you can have the gifts awakened, but that you also, no one just wakes up in an instant state of bliss, and right, there's still a process of navigating the human experience. Now you're navigating the human experience with these gifts activated, so you can navigate the human experience from a higher perspective. We're all still experiencing 4D. 4D is that bridge between the old reality and the new reality. All of us are in that chrysalis phase between the caterpillar and the butterfly.
Mm-hmm.
They're just being activated at different levels. We're all in that transition process. We are in that transition phase right now, that in between time. And yes, it is happening much, much, much faster than it has before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what took me 5 years before now is taking people weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Much faster to process the experience. One, because we have the tools to be able to make the process faster. There are more guides who have been through it that can help make the process faster. The light flooding the planet is helping make the process faster. The amount of love that's now being experienced on this planet is making the process go faster.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an instant quick fix. However, it's much faster than it has been in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really exciting to think about.
For sure, definitely. Yeah, and I wanted to ask actually about your walk-in experience. How do you know if you are a walk-in, and how many people do you think that's happening to? Could you just talk on your walk-in experience?
Well, mine's a little bit different. It's actually what I call it, a merge down. It was a merging between my personality self and my higher self. I had a soul contract between my personality self and my higher self, that at one point my higher self would merge down into this human experience. So I discovered this in 2011 when I first even heard the term higher self.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought at first that I was channeling an entity named Victoria. So my personality, my birth name is Margaret. I thought I was channeling an entity named Victoria the same way Esther Hicks channels Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
And through a series of conversations and events, I realized, oh, wait, that's me I'm talking to. I thought I was talking to this being named Victoria, Elohim of Freedom, and she was telling me how to, help humanity and write these books and teachings and things. And then I realized that, oh, that's me. But I didn't tell anybody for a long time because humanity wasn't ready yet 15 years ago for me to come out of the spiritual closet. I wasn't ready to come out of the spiritual closet because I had 2 little kids. I didn't want anyone attacking them. I wasn't ready to come out of the spiritual closet. There was, however, a point when I understood that there was an agreement that I, Victoria, needed to have boots on the ground in order to experience what humanity is experiencing. And it's one thing to see it from up here. It's another thing to actually be experiencing it in order to really feel what humanity is feeling and experience what humanity is experiencing. Mm-hmm. And this is why so many of us, even those like you, the star being, chose to what the Palladian showed me is they leave their body on the ship. Mm-hmm. They put it in a refrigerator and then they come into human form in order to experience and teach humanity as a human being. So part of the reason we did this is because humanity was having a really difficult time knowing how to actually make conscious choices, because human beings have experienced unconscious choice for so long, and manipulated choice and coerced choice, that the star beings and the angelics were trying to inspire humanity to make better choices. It wasn't working. Mm-hmm. So they decided to take human form in order to actually show human beings how to make better choices. Mm-hmm. Because being external, as you know, we can't interfere with human choice.
Right.
We can't tell people what to do. As we choose to have human bodies, we can show people how to make better choices by us making better choices. We can't interfere with anybody else's choice, but we can show them how to make better choices. Mm-hmm. Which is what your team is showing you, how to make better choices. Mm-hmm. So in my particular case, in the walk-in experience, I had what's called a soul merge, where my higher self, my personality self, agreed for a higher version of me to now come down into this form. Mm-hmm. And it was a process that took about 6 years. It could have happened sooner, but my personality self was there were some aspects of my life that she wasn't willing to let go of. So for a while, two of us were trying to drive the same bus. It does not work very well. So there was a point where my personality self finally said, fine, and that's when I finished walking in and started making some changes around the house. Let's put it that way.
Wow. That's amazing. So with these UFOs, and then we'll wrap it up in a second. This is incredible. With these UFOs, and the first being that I saw, light blue being, no hair, very beautiful, humanoid. Her name's Talia. She started teaching me every single day, hearing her voice in my head. I call it Starseed boot camp, hardcore training period, where I was learning all of these things. And then after a while, it's like I stopped hearing her, and I asked, where did she go? And then I was in the bath at the time. I look over in front and I saw her in my reflection. Like we had merged. And I like how you said that it was a 6-year process for you. That just makes sense. That it's a little bit of a process merging also, or integrating.
Yeah. So she actually is you, right? Integrating with you into this, integrating with your personality self into this human form. And that Starseed boot camp, and I think you'll agree with me, it felt more like remembering than learning.
Yeah. That was one of the things they told. Yeah, that was.
Oh, okay. Somehow I knew that already. That makes sense. It's different than the human computer brain trying to make sense of something. It's like your higher mind goes, oh, yeah. Yeah. So I call it remembering what your soul already knows. Yeah. So the personality self starts to remember what your soul already knows. So your soul is teaching you what you already know. It's a matter of you remembering that. That's what I was saying in the beginning, that part of that when we're human, we start to dismember all these aspects of ourselves, and then we start to remember who we are. We bring all this remembrances and all these experiences and everything we've known and everything back into this one experience. And then that's when we become whole. We were never broken to begin with. We had just like not remembered aspects of ourselves. And we remember our holiness, because actually where the word whole comes from. Yeah. And when you remember your true divine holiness, then life becomes a completely different experience.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the biggest things that they were telling me, and that I've really focused on the most, is remembering. I am remembering who I truly am. I would say that every day. I meditate on that. I am remembering who I truly am. And then more of it, starts coming back. I start remembering more.
Yeah. And then life becomes an adventure rather than a drudgery. And then we start to remember our soul's higher purpose, and it starts to get exciting. It starts to become adventurous. It starts to be like, wow, it's so cool that I get to be a part of this.
Yeah. Really beautiful. Well, oh my gosh, it's been so wonderful speaking with you. Do you have any other words for the audience? And then you can tell people wherever they can find you. And then I guess, we'll wrap it up.
Final words for the audience. Ultimately, all of this, as you and I were saying, is about remembering who we are. And all of this is about learning to have a loving relationship with ourselves. Because once you learn how to have a loving relationship with yourself, that then becomes the love that you extend out to the entire human experience, into all life on earth. A lot of people have this misperception they have to get love from someplace else. We are actually love sourced through every single one of us. And that when we learn to love all of us, that becomes who and what we embody as we move through life. And once you really learn how to love yourself, it's pretty much impossible to not love everyone else, because the love actually comes from us. It's put out there and then it's reflected back to us. Our love is what's reflected back to us. And so our relationship with ourselves is what's reflected back to us. Mm-hmm. And so whenever someone says something that triggers up something inside of us, it's understanding it's not them, it's us. What is happening with that person that's triggering something in me that's asking for my attention? Mm-hmm. So it's always about the relationship with ourselves, always. And then once we have that relationship with ourselves, then that changes the entire way we experience the entire human experience. For me, the best way to find me is victoriareynolds.com. Easy peasy. I have a YouTube channel, which is also, I had several YouTube channels. I've merged them into one, just Victoria Reynolds YouTube channel. And I'm on Facebook. I have a Telegram group. I'm on Instagram. I have a newsletter that I send out every week or so. I say that because sometimes it's once a week, sometimes it's every couple of weeks, just depending on what's going on in my life. Mm-hmm. And my books are all available on Amazon. I do personal sessions and have some classes. People that take my classes are kind of in flux right now, but they are available. And I guess that's it. Yeah. And I have a free book on my website. So if people want to go to my website, I do have a free book there for them.
Beautiful. Yeah, it sounds like you have a lot of wonderful resources. You said you had a book about, was it prosperity or
that's actually an online program.
Oh, okay.
It was called 6D Money Tree. That website's not working, but people can actually purchase the program, and then I'll send them the link to buy all this, to find all the stuff, because anyway, long story. That website has never worked properly, so I'm having to have it rebuilt. That's a prosperity program. I have something called the Transcendence Process. That's a very intimate small group class that I teach. It's a 9-week class. I haven't done it for a while because it requires so much of my time. And as you know, I'm traveling a lot, traveling and speaking. So I haven't really had a time to teach that, but I'm going to make it a recorded program and make that available for people as a home study class as well.
Beautiful.
I'm in the middle of selling my house, so nothing's getting recorded until that's done. That's the last of my detachments to my old self, and yeah.
Beautiful. Well, awesome. Yeah, guys, go check out her website. Sounds like Victoria has wonderful resources, and her YouTube channel. She has some interesting content on there as well. And give this video a like, drop your comments. Thank you so much, Victoria, for coming on. And hopefully, I'm starting to go to these conferences and expos. So hopefully I run into you in person someday.
My next one is Contact in the Desert.
I'm going to that.
Are you? Okay. I'm hoping to get a media pass so I can go there with my camera and crew and have some great conversations. Yeah. So I'll be at Contact in the Desert, and I will be at Portal to Ascension in Glastonbury. Hopefully at an event I'm buying the tickets right now, in Egypt. I've never been to Egypt. And then I'm going to an event in Greece. And yeah, this is what happens when I can sell my house and I can just go now do the teaching and traveling, which is part of my soul's higher purpose. And also making some movies and TV shows while I'm out there as well. And then I'm working on something else for the end of October, which is going to be a divine feminine retreat, which is in the works right now. So I've got some really exciting things happening. Yeah, I hope I get to see you in the desert for Contact in the Desert.
Yep. I hope I get to see you. All right, everybody. Everybody have a good night, and I will see you later, Star Brothers and Sisters. Bye. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like this video. And also, I have a channel DNA activation session with a workshop that teaches you how to activate your DNA and how to connect with your cosmic family. I channel the Pleiadians, Arcturians, Sirians, Lyrans in this hour-long, potent DNA activation that can help you activate your gifts and abilities and discover who you truly are. Find the link in the description.